with Jesus Christ sitting at your right hand in supreme authority over all. We ask your presence today to fill us with your Spirit, to be able to understand what is being spoken to us, the sanctification and the washing of the Word. We of ourselves are nothing. We are deprived, sinful creatures, but only by your grace have we been redeemed from the wrath of God, which is so rightly deserving. We are all doing much better than we truly deserve, for who could stand if sin was held against us? As a father pities his children, so you know our frame, and we are dust. We thank you for sending your Son to the cross to die a gruesome, horrible death, displaying the love that you have for us. We ask your presence today in this meeting to be glorifying your Son above all things. In Jesus' precious, holy, and mighty name, I pray. Amen.
No. 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 No.
I think this is the second part. Maybe I can finish the B attitudes. I like the B attitude. It's also called Sermon on the Mount. You know, it depends on who you ask, but I think I only got 45 minutes last time, I think something like that, and I was only through 6 verses.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe I can get through those today,
I
but
don't know how it's up.
one of those things I think I see in this church is Matthew 5, verse 7, that's where the Beatitudes are at, are the merciful, because you've forgiven me a lot of my mistakes. I came back and told you I've made mistakes. I think I've told you before, part of the message is usually perfect. It's the part where I read out of the Bible. My part, not so much.
Wow, that way.
So, in Matthew 5:7, blessed are they, are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. And here's why I think that's true. Blessed is meaning made happy. I think really many of us have that gift of mercy, and we don't really know it. That's one of the gifts of the Spirit, is mercy. And I think in Romans 12:8 it mentions that gift of the Spirit is being merciful. And I think it's more than a gift, it's more of an attitude, because you have a choice. You know, it's like you have a choice to choose life or to choose death, and we have the chance of God being merciful on us because of the propitiation or the wrath of God being put on Jesus Christ. That made me pretty happy.
Yeah.
So, I think a mature mercy giver is a person that's really kind and gentle. It kind of reminds me of the way Sharon is. Sharon is soft-spoken, she's gentle, she's kind. And I said, can you repeat that sometimes? Because I can't, she's so soft-spoken that I can't hear her. Could you repeat that again? And so I offered to give her the microphone this morning, and she declined because she's very humble and gentle in spirit. But she has the mercy. And I think I've told her before, and probably everybody here, I'm sorry. And please forgive me. So I think that's an indication, if you're asking for forgiveness, that you have that gift of mercy. I think that's one. We have more than one gift, okay? I went into the Christmas tree, and if I only had one gift, I would be kind of disappointed, okay? I didn't do anything to deserve that gift. I didn't return the gift. I didn't earn the gift. It was a gift. And I think a lot of you have that gift of mercy, so I'm thankful for that. I think that's the backbone of the church, because they feel like they have that passionate desire to pray for the church and pray for the lost, because they have mercy on those, like the person we were talking about in Sunday school, that believes that it's okay, that they think that they don't need to change their sexual persuasion of becoming, into the church, and God accepts everyone, and if you're homosexual, there's no problem, you can come right on in. But love shows them the truth and doesn't withhold the Word of God. And so they think what they think is love is, everybody's welcome, Jesus. So Jesus' arms are open at the cross. But it's a holy, righteous, demanding love. So we can show them mercy by praying for them, and the Holy Spirit would convict them and show them their error. So I'm going to try to take that to heart, because only the Holy Spirit, Proverbs 21:1 says, if God can change the pagan king's heart, a king over a nation, a pagan king, he can do anything. And he changed mine, and he changed me. And I think that's one of the greatest miracles. So I think God had mercy on us, and the prayer is an expression of God's heart, it's an expression of our heart, and the mercy God had for us. And I think so. The merciful, if they're merciful, they will receive mercy. If they're unmerciful, then I believe that God is going to be unmerciful to them. So, that mercy is going to be, they shall obtain, is a future tense. You know, and it's also one that it can happen later today, but it can also one happen at the bema seat of Christ, and we can avoid that second death. Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. Blessed are they who are pure in heart. Pure in heart will see God. Psalm 73 says, refers to those who recognize that God alone is their hope. I think if you are pure in heart, you realize that you cannot make yourself pure in heart. You have to depend upon God. And I won't go there, Psalm 73, but it's kind of mentioning that. Psalm 24, verse 3 through 5 is very specific about that. You know, Moses, when in his day, and God was on the mountain, he says, don't go near the mountain. If you touch it, you're dead. It's like the kid in playground in the winter when I was in 3rd grade. In the winter, touch your tongue to the metal pole. Don't do it. Don't. Why? I double dare you. I triple dare you. Okay. Should have done that. It stuck. And they had to go in, and they had to end up pouring, actually they had to pour cold water, because when they pour hot water, it freezes quicker. Okay? So they had to pour cold water. The kid got mad. The teacher was angry, and the kid got tension. Okay? That's not a very good thing to do. So you don't want to go near things with your tongue in the winter in a metal pole because it's going to stick. And I've actually experimented with that one time. One time I was working on a vehicle for a lady whose car broke down, and it was so cold and it was freezing drizzle, and I was leaning over her car. I became stuck to her car. So you don't want, I didn't realize that. I was working so hard, it was a little bit of it, and part of my sweat, it was freezing it was coming down and freezing on my face actually. So I became frozen to the car. So I should have been careful because that was freezing drizzle when I made contact. The same thing, Psalm 23, verse 3 through 5, not the same thing. But who can stand in this holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart. Isn't that what James said? Have clean hands and a pure heart. They receive blessing from God and vindication from God their Savior. Really, they're only the pure in heart are going to see God, because He became sin for us, so we be seen as having Christ's righteousness. It's not the pure in heart that they might or may see God, but it says here, they will, they shall. That's something that's permanent. It's going to happen. It's not a might, maybe, could be, hopefully, they shall see. This one I like at work because Matthew 5, verse 9 says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be sons of God. Here's a great example. Someone mentioned something the other day about, someone said something at work about that things didn't go right, and I don't want to get too specific, but they were very angry at their coworker. And I tried to enter in, I said, you know what, maybe they weren't aware, maybe they didn't know that was going to cause a problem. I don't think they realized that the child that I had the situation in a particular way. So maybe I'm trying to give that person the benefit of the doubt. I tried to play peacemaker. Instead of saying, you know, right, how dare they? Boy, that made me angry too, you know. I stopped and I thought, you know what, maybe there's something more that we don't know, and we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. And unless, like, somebody else says something about me because I've had things said about me, or others said about you, or something like that at work, I'm going to give them the benefit of it because it may not be true.
Told him not to use it.
So, that is a peacemaker. You're trying to solve
Out of my
conflict.
way.
They head off conflict, like they head them off in the past. They see an opportunity to mediate peace between maybe coworkers in a way. Says, you know, they said this, but maybe they meant to say this, and maybe the way they worded it was not communicated well. That's a peacemaker. It's not Henry Kissinger trying to get the Arabs and the Israelis back in the 70s to shake hands. No, that is more of mediation. But the peacemaker is to make somebody to avoid a conflict ahead of time. So Jesus, we have peace before God because of Christ. He headed off the conflict at Calvary for us. And you can do this in church, at work, in families. Is it another situation in families where so-and-so said so-and-so? I said, well, maybe they meant this and maybe they were talking about someone else. About pretty much everywhere you go. I think that's evidence that you're a child of God if you're trying to play give person to person thought, benefit of the doubt. You know, and even when they say something to me, I want to try to not take it personally. Maybe they meant it in a different way. In one case, they said something about Jack, and then there's this and that happened. They go, I can't believe this. You know what? There's another Jack at work, and it wasn't about me. So I could have took that the wrong way, and I went and confronted them, and they said, I found out later that was another person named Jack. So,
That happens a lot.
and as I told them, the word two Jacks beats a full house anyway, so they laughed and went on, and they kind of laughed about it. So I tried to make peace by using humor. So Matthew 5, verse 10, blessed are they, or blessed or made happy are those, since we know the word blessing is mean to be made happy, are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Some translations say, blessed are all who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. It doesn't say if you're persecuted for doing something wrong, or you did something that you shouldn't have done and offended someone else, and they come back on you, that is a different situation. Here, if you're blessed, have you ever been insulted for being a Christian? Have you ever been, you holy roller, you're holier than thou? I've had people tell me that too, Jack the Baptist and all this other, kind of a disparaging remark. Good. Why is it good to be persecuted for Christ's sake? I know why. Because if you're, and this is what 1 Peter 4:14 says, this is another blessing. I want in Matthew 5 is the most compact section of the whole Bible where Jesus promises you, assures you to have these blessings. And I want to be blessed for this reason. 1 Peter 4:14. If you're insulted for the name of Christ, you're blessed. Because the Spirit, that's a capital S, the Spirit of glory and of God. Now, not just the Spirit of God alone or the blessings of God, but the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. Rest meaning if it's putting itself upon you like John is the same type of rest that John, the beloved disciple that Jesus loved, laid his chest on his bosom. That is the picture of that rest. I want that. I want that blessing. Now, I don't go out and do it on purpose to be able to receive that blessing, because then my motive is not right. James says, Peter goes on to say, if anyone suffers as a Christian, he is not to be ashamed. Don't be ashamed. But it is to glorify God. That's in 1 Peter 4:16. So really, you're wanting to be persecuted, not intentionally, but if you're going to be persecuted, I should put it that way, it's going to glorify God. Even if we're persecuted, it glorifies God. I think far too many Christians are surprised when they are surprised by suffering, or surprised. I can't believe they so-and-so said so-and-so about me, and they persecuted me. And when I've had a few people slam the doors, I'm from this church, slam, Jerry was with me, my retired preacher friend, and this lady who attended a certain church said, I attend so-and-so, and slammed the door in my face, and I said, we just got blessed, brother. And he goes, what? He was mad. And at first, my inclination was mad too. I said, you know what? That's good. Because when you're persecuted for His sake and for your beliefs, it proves that you're not an underground Christian. You're not a secret Christian. You're not a one that is only interested in getting to holy huddles and just praying. It's out there in the open. And are we any better than Christ? Are we going to suffer not suffer persecution? Are we going to be able to be, we can use our social skills to not share the gospel and not be persecuted. It's not going to happen. Because if you speak the truth, it's going to make people angry. For example, when Matthew 5:11 says, now we're getting blessings for getting beat up pretty much. and here's Jesus saying, blessed are they, or they are made happy, or blessing, are you, the you is plural. When, it's not when or if, it's not maybe or possibly if you, when they revile you. The word revile is kind of an even, it means when they speak evil of you, they treat you with contempt. They say despicable things about you. To be reviled, like Jesus was reviled by sinners, is to be despised and to be hated. But you know what? It's good to be hated, because if they didn't care, there is no hope at all for them to hear the gospel. If they're angry, that means you're pricking their conscience and you're stirring them in there, that they're angry because they don't believe that they believe in God and they feel that they're convicted of sin. But the truth sets you free or makes you really mad. If it makes you indifferent, then there's no hope. So Matthew 5:11, blessed are you when, not if, when they revile you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely for Jesus' sake. My sake has got a capital N on, and I don't know if your translation is. It's a personal pronoun. It's a capital letter. So Jesus said, a servant's not greater than master. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. He didn't say they might. Perhaps you might run into some conflict. Maybe you have a few people, send you emails with nasty viruses over the email. He says they will persecute you. Absolutely. If they kept my word, they'll keep yours also. But if they don't, they didn't keep his also. Matthew 5, verses 12. So, we're blessed if we're persecuted for his sake, for righteousness' sake. Blessed are you when they revile you and speak pretty badly about you in potty mouth, pretty much. Even curse with your name. Curse you out to your face. I've had that. I've actually been cursed at to my face. And I thought about taking my little recorder and doing witnesses on the street and putting an MP3 and putting it on a website to hear how people react and to maybe put it on the air or YouTube or vocal only or something like that just to hear. But I'd have to delete so much and bleep so much out that it's probably not going to happen, because we're going to be left with nothing. And that's what happens. So I thought about doing that, but I said that's probably not going to work. Matthew 5:12, rejoice and be exceedingly glad. To be exceedingly glad means you're almost wet your pants joyful. It's so, when I had my grandchildren, when we caught our first fish, he caught his first fish, he was so happy, he wet his pants. That's the kind of joy. He was so happy. And it was only a little sun perch. Did that matter to him? He didn't care. He caught his first fish, Papa, and he was so happy. He caught his first fish, he was so, and he did leap for joy, and he was so happy, he wet himself. That is what this word, exceedingly glad, it's one of the strongest words that you'll find in the Bible, exceedingly. Exceed means beyond, to exceed everything. So, rejoice and be exceedingly glad if they revile you, if they hate you, if they speak evil of you, if they persecute you for your righteousness, for Christ's sake. You're supposed to leap for joy. That doesn't seem to fit, does it? When you get in trouble for something at work, and for something you did at work, you're not leaping for joy. Jesus said we should be exceedingly glad, or leap for joy, and jump for joy, for great is your reward in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you. They persecuted them, and some of them they killed. You know that there are more Christians killed in the last century than in the last 2,000 years. And it's going to get worse. They killed the prophets. They killed Jesus. I've actually had one person spit on me. I've had one person show a gun to me at the door. I've had one dog chase me. I've actually had a cat chase me. I've had and the cat, I kind of bluffed him a little bit because he did turn around. And so the international sign for I'm here, buddy, you can watch. Actually, I probably would have ran, but I think he believed my bluff, and so I think, you're in pretty good company. They treated others before you the same way. That's pretty strong evidence that you're sharing your faith. So when they, like when you were trying to share the gospel with someone and it probably made her mad, and if I went down to that false minister who said that it's condoning sin, you can come in as you are. If I tried to show him the 13 passages in the New Testament where it is ironclad evidence, dogmatic, concrete evidence that is sin, he's going to get mad at me.
I'm gonna leave it.
Good. Because that shows you, if he didn't care, then I'm thinking there's no hope for him. If I'm making him mad, at least maybe there is a chance. So I think the Beatitudes are like having to be an attitude to have the mind of Christ, like Paul said. I can't live these verses out personally. I cannot. It's like what it said in our Sunday school again. It's something. It's in the heart. It's something I can't do on my own. It has to. It's something internal. I can't do it by myself. So, and it's interesting because in the next verse, and I think it follows next actually, in Matthew 5. You are the salt. Now, when I was in elementary school, I'm sorry, I'm taking it back, junior high, somebody undid the lid of the salt.
Oh.
And oh man, and I just ruined it.
Yeah.
So, I think Jesus said that, and I think it is in Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth. Salt of the earth, But too much salt, it's kind of hard to take. It ruins it. So there's just the right amount of salt. It's just right. I quit salt several years ago. So when there's a salty food that I get, I cannot hardly stand it. It just, salted peanuts, I can't handle it. I have to take the peanuts in my hand and go like this, get rid of the salt, and then like because there's too much salt. So the point is that too much salt leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It ruins it. Salt is a great analogy. But the salt that never gets out of the shaker, like I was a pew potato for so many years. The salt is useless unless it gets out of the shaker.
I crave salt.
Salt is the only element that is found in every living organism on the face of the earth. They say you need water. They think they may have found life in Mars, I think, because they found water, but they found water, they're going to find life. But you know what? Without salt, even a tiny amount of salt, life is impossible too. So we knew it's essential to human life. And Paul said in Colossians 4:6, we're supposed to season our speech with salt, not make it an salt. Done that. Which is like taking the lid off the salt, somebody putting it on.
Well,
That's an salt. For being assaulted, I was assaulted for that. Assaulted. Jesus said in Matthew, and Paul said and repeated in Colossians, that this salty, sweet speech needs to be in our mouth among the believers and among the unsaved. Our salt, here's what salt does. It does what I call the three amigos. Have I told you about that? I think I've told you that before. The three amigos, one for all for one. Eat three amigos is salt. Edification, exhortation, and encouragement. And those are three of the most powerful Sodium chloride, there's three compounds. Now, a lot of things in nature are three.
That's it. That's it.
The Holy Spirit is three. God is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. God is the God of the past, the present, and the future. You know, there's a lot of things with God, and it's just... If I want to enhance people's, my speech by being salt to the world, I'm not going to cram it down their throat. Jesus never went up and forced himself on anybody. But at the same time, he was never, like Connie said, we need to be bold with our witness, and more so as the time draws near. A couple of weeks ago, I got a sore throat, and I found out that I had a tooth that was, and it was from that, it was a tooth that was infected and impacted. I took warm salt water, and that's the best solution that kills germs. It's a preservative. It sterilizes a lot of things. In fact, that's what they use to preserve food still today. And in fact, they did it a long time ago. They used to store salt, you know, like salt pork, and before they had refrigerators, salt. In fact, if you were a Roman soldier, it would say, here's some of you. They would pay some of you by salt. And if they didn't do their job, they would get less salt, or they would get their full allotment. Hence the term, he is not worth his salt. So I think the analogy of being a salt and light, which is what Jesus is talking about. But if the salt's lost its savor, what is it good for? You know what they did with salt? It got ruined. They took the salt and mixed it with gypsum. And they used it to pitch as a make a sealant for the roof. Now the roofs in the ancient days were their family room. They didn't have porches. So they used the roof as a second room. And so they would go out there, the family would go out there in the evening, not in the heat of the day. They would use the salt that had been ruined, mix it with gypsum to use to patch it. And you know what? This is interesting because Jesus says, it's only good to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot. Guess where it was trodden underfoot? The roof. You know what gypsum means? Bitter. So the Christian that's lost their soul becomes bitter, and it's only good to be trodden underfoot. Did you see the analogy of that? There's so much, no wonder Jesus said you are the salt. But if you've lost your saltiness, you're no more good than to be trampled underfoot. That means you've lost your witness. If your mouth betrays what's in your heart, and it's not salty, sweet savor to the lost and to the saved, then it's worthless. And you know what they do with other salt? They cast it out, and they put it on the roads. And they use it in footpaths. The Roman road, they would put it in areas where it was no good to be trampled underfoot. And if you're trampling it underfoot, it's a meaning of what you're stamping on. It's a way of showing you it's despicable. It's good for nothing. They throw it out. Believe me, I've looked at my speech sometimes, and I looked at my foot, and I think, wow, look at that foot. How does that big foot fit? Done. Maybe I should say my little foot into my big mouth, okay? I have managed to do that. I've ruined my saltiness, and I've assaulted others by my speech, by my holier than thou. I put too much salt, and I've offended it. So that's what he's saying. It's good for nothing except to be thrown out and to be trampled underfoot. I agree. I am so with you. And believe it or not, this is the last part of the Beatitudes, so I wanted to try to finish the Beatitudes. And you know what? If you look at Matthew 5, verses 14, it goes to 16. So since we got started a little early, I'm not trying to end intentionally early, but I want to just complete. And I wasn't sure if I was going to get to this because it had to be a two-part, but this is the part I really like. You know, my mother-in-law loves lighthouses. And so when it's time for Mother's Day, or Christmas, or you know, any, or, I think there's Grandparents' Day now, it was last week or something.
Here was
Okay.
last week.
You know what? I'd give her a lighthouse. I'm pretty well gonna be a win-win situation. It could be either different kind of a lighthouse, and she likes lighthouses. And she just, I don't know why, I'm not asking her why. I don't care, but I know what to get her. It makes it a no-brainer. Then I go to my mother-in-law, who I've actually gave her a gift. I've asked, what does your daughter like, my wife? And so I inquired from her to find out what she might want for birthday. Because after a while, you've been married so long, Tom, you know how hard that is to buy somebody that says, well, I don't need anything, I have everything. Wow, that's going to be hard to buy.
But you know what they're actually telling you?
You know,
You live with me long enough, you should know what I want.
you know, and that's, if you have to ask what I want, then you really don't care what I want. And I've heard maybe that mentioned before, but my wife is a beautiful, lovely spirit. She has not ever said that. She always, I think she's sincere. It means I need nothing. And if I get nothing, you think Dad's got to fly, it's not going to work for me. Here's an envelope, here's a card, and it's eyes, nothing. That's not happening. Okay. We, like a lighthouse, we are a lighthouse in a dark, stormy world. You know, the oceans, a lighthouse is like a light, and it puts them on a path. Jesus Christ said, and through the Psalms it says, He lights our path. And you know what? In the stormy and the seas is a picture of death.
That's what the lighthouse is for.
And that's what the lighthouse, it's intended to give a fixed point. Like the one brigadier general on this ship. And here is someone on station in there, and the general says, you need to move your ship. You need to move. And the private says, sorry sir, I cannot move. Then he cut him off. You need to move. This is a brigadier general. You move. And she goes, but general, no buts. You move right now. And says, sir, you might be a general. And you might be in a battleship. And you might be the fleet commander. But I'm the lighthouse. Can't move. Sorry. That lighthouse preserved perhaps the safety of that ship and that whole fleet because they thought it was another ship. And if he had not known that, that general would have went storming right in and he was going to just go right behind and he would have wrecked the ship. So that's how important lighthouses are. And you're a light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden. You can't hide something on a hill. You know, you can't, when I went skiing, I was in a bunny hill because I was not a very good skier. Okay, and I'm thinking, I am an accident waiting to happen. I'm up there on the bunny hill in my little skis, and I'm going like this. Everybody was watching. Let's watch what happened. He's going to. You cannot hide from, if you're on a bunny hill, the same here. You cannot hide if we are showing the light of Christ, the light of men is Christ. John, first chapter of John, the Gospel of John. He is the light of the world. He is the light inside of the men. You cannot hide it. If you are hiding it, or they don't see it, then you know how to open it up and you're not being made to be shown. Jesus also says, nor do they put a lamp, light a lamp and put it under a basket. Why?
You can't see it.
You can't see? Plus, that's a fire hazard, isn't it? And putting it under a basket and you cannot see it if it's under a basket. So, but on a lampstand, and this is and I'm using the NIV version because I like the way it said it in this particular way in Matthew 5:14. If you put a lamp on the light stand, in fact, if you went to a dark cave, we were caving in Arkansas many years ago, and we had started losing flashlight after flashlight after flashlight. We were just about down one flashlight, and guess what happened? It started shivering. And this was a honeycomb cave in Arkansas. They say every 5th mile in Arkansas you drive over a cave. There's so many caves. So here we were, cavemen, sorry, we were 5 of us with only one flashlight, and the batteries were about to go.
That was fun.
Not good.
Fun, though.
But you know what? It only takes one tiny little flashlight. It was a pin light
Yeah,
to light the whole cave. So only takes one Christian in a place of work, in a family, in an environment to eliminate the whole one. Now, if you're the light of the world, and if I went up and I shone a light in your face, that's not what it said. Jesus had put it on that all men may see it. If you shine it in their face, that's offensive, and that's too strong, and you're hurting their eyes, and really you're bragging about I'm the light, and so see what I mean? You can make it could be too far. You can take it too far. So you can take a simple candle and light a cave. We should have brought candles. That's what we should have done. And they call it. You guys were out there, when we finally got out, we found a guy, we were actually on private property when we got out, and here's this old farmer, and if you've seen the movie Deliverance, he was a little bit, we were a little bit worried, and you know, I thought, I wonder if we told anybody where we were going, if we'll ever be seen again. I mean, that was my first thought. But the guy knew what he was talking about. He said, you've been spelunking. I said, I didn't spelunk, he might have did something like it. No, spelunking is caving, okay? So the guy knew about caves. He knew a lot more than we did. And he said, you know, you're lucky to be alive. I said, the only reason we knew how to get back out, and we had one flashlight, and we followed our footsteps back. I had something with, I can't remember what it was, I was putting marks on the cave. I was putting marks. If I hadn't put those marks, we would never come back. So the one little tiny light literally saved our life. Or we were going to die. We were never going to get
I
out.
love that kind of picture.
The candle is, we should have brought a candle, because if you light a candle, it'll show you where the air is coming. It's going to point to the exit. We were fools because we were in darkness, but that one light saved us all. The analogy is the same thing. That one light in one place could save many.
Bring your blanket all.
And Jesus says, and it gives light to all who are in the house. I'm going to look at the King James Version just to be encouraged, because I think it's saying the same thing. In Matthew 5:15. But on a candlestick it gives light unto all that are in the house. Meaning, you might be the only Christian that anyone will ever know. You might be the only Christian in all of your family. You might be the first one saved to lead others to Christ. And they're not going to recognize the darkness until they see a light. And the Gospel of John chapter 1, we have that light. The light is in the middle. We know better. We have that in Romans 1 and 2 says, we know better. We are without excuse. Now, here's why I've got the light. The flashlight and the light in the family. Sometimes I've witnessed to my family because they say, oh, we're Christians. We don't read the Bible. No, we don't go to church. Well, we don't do this, and we don't do that, and we don't, and you can tell from the language. Their light and their works, they're not glorifying God. They're bringing shame to the name of Christ because they are not, they might say they're professing, but they are not possessing. There is no fruit showing that they are saved. And in this last section here, and before I do, let me mention one thing. I took a flight one time when I worked for Head Start, and I was a regional manager, and we came back, and it was a stormy night. It had tornado warnings, and there were large hail, and we're in this airplane jet that is circling around, and we can't find, it's too stormy to land, and we're running out of fuel, and the plane is getting tossed more and more because in the stressing, you know how much stress went in. You can see the wings going like that. I was scared. I mean, it was very frightening. And then the lights went out, and we thought we lost power. When the light goes out, you lose the power, and those around you are in darkness. That is the same analogy. We were going to crash. You know what? I was praying pretty well right there. I was saying, God, if it's my time, your will be done. But please don't let it be my time, okay? we have problems. Okay, we have a problem. If there is an emergency, you have to tuck your head between your knees, bend your body over, and breathe regularly. Breathe regularly? Well, sure, easy for you to say. Houston, we have a problem. I can't breathe. Don't say that. Yes, we have a problem. I think I just soiled myself. And he said, that's okay. It's not okay. For you, maybe. And it's just not, I started thinking, you know, we may have a problem. It's not the flight I'm worried about. It's the landing I'm worried about, okay? So, why did they, and besides, what do they call it at the airport? Terminal. That means the ending. What the word terminal means. I'm thinking this is going to live out a meaning. So when the lights came on, they had emergency lights, and the lights did come back on. I think they took near lightning strike, and the planes can take lightning strike. Not fun. When your hair stands up and you know, you just been hit by lightning. Thank you. That's too much light, okay? Way too much light. So you can be a light to the world, but not too much. But darkness is not enough. Somewhere in the middle. So when the lights came back on, we were all happy campers. And people were yelling and screaming. And there were shrieks of terror. Children were crying. That makes it worse. So they should see, let your light shine so before men. Let your light shine so shine. Let your light shine so. I like to put it before that. Before men. So, or in order, if you can hear the word so, it means that in order to others see your good works. Now, if they're going to see your good works, that's a pretty good guy. He's really going to know. What is it about? And glorify your Father which is in heaven, because God says, I will not share my glory with another. Why should I? Well, I am God. So, when somebody says, you know, that's really, I appreciate you doing that, or what you did here, or so-and-so, and somebody, and I saw Bill a couple of weeks ago and says, you know, somebody told me about him and told me what you've done for him, and says, you know what, if I did not have the intent of helping somebody, motivated, I believe, by the Holy Spirit, I would have given a flip about him. I would have only cared about me. You know what? I've reflected the glory. Like the sun shines and illuminates the dark moon, I am not the source of that light. Should the moon brag and look at me, look at my light, I light the night and I'm beautiful? No. Who receives the credit? The sun. For us, it is the sun. S-O-N. So unless I reflect the glory, the credit and honor to the sun, I am robbing glory from God. And so that's what it means to be a light of the world, to be salt of the earth, and blessed are you who hunger and thirst for His righteousness and not yours. Righteous God, we are not a source of goodness. There is nothing good in us. We're all at best vessels bent for destruction. As the story of Gideon shows, you take clay vessels that are broken with light in the center, with not our own light. And that is how Gideon and his 300 men conquered 130,000 of the enemy. Because the battle was yours, the glory is yours, and it is not of ourselves. Ask you to be with us this week and be with those who are traveling this week. We thank you for your travel mercies and your gift of grace. And bless the board meeting that we would reflect the glory of you. You are God of order and things done properly and decently. We ask your dismissal and to glorify you, the salt and light through a dying, dark, decaying world for the glory of Jesus Christ and you, Father. All glory and honor and praise alone.